Hey guys, how's it going? Scarlett here. So today we have a fun little video. This is going to be the A to Z of Witchcraft, where I picked something witchy to correspond with each letter of the alphabet. And I've seen a few other people do this on YouTube before or as a blog post, so I thought it'd be fun to share my own version. And do please keep in mind before I get started that this is just meant to be a fun video and that witchcraft in general is a massive topic spanning many genres. So my picks for A to Z will probably be quite a bit different than your picks. And in my view, that's okay because witchcraft is what we make it. So let's jump right into it with the letter A. So for the letter A, we have the Athame, which is a tool to direct your energy in any type of ritual or ceremonial magic. And the term Athame derives from the Latin word artivus, which was kind of a quill knife back in the day. And Athames have been mentioned all the way back to the Key of Solomon. But it's a really wonderful tool in general to direct your energy for any type of ritual that you might be performing. Athames come in many different forms. This one is as a kind of blunted dagger, so it's not sharp on the edges. It's not meant to cut anything. Most commonly, you will see Athames made out of black obsidian. So next we have B, and for B I have books, of course. I recently did a video where I showed you my full witch and pagan book collection. I will link that one up above. And also I did want to remind you about the giveaway that I'm doing. I will be giving away 3 books that are great for any beginners to witchcraft. So I'll be giving away Wicca by Scott Cunningham, Living Wicca, and Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. So I will link the details for the giveaway down in the description box below, so definitely check that out if you have not entered the giveaway yet. And books are essential, in my opinion, for witchcraft because I view it as a learning process. With witchcraft, it's important to learn about the different ancestral traditions. It's important to learn about different techniques and methods. It's important to learn about the history of magical practice. So I am always looking through my book collection and eager to learn new things. So for letter C, I have candles. And you can see I have a few of them back there. And candle magic is a form of witchcraft that tends to be pretty popular. You'll find that candles are included in a lot of spells and rituals, and they can even be used for divination by focusing in on the candle flame and seeing if any visions or thoughts or intuitive feelings come to mind. So a really great tool for any type of witchcraft practice. So for the letter D, we are going to talk about divination, and there are many forms of divination out there. There is scrying through a crystal ball or a black mirror. There is tarot, of course, or oracle cards, and there are runes. You can also work with bones and other materials for divination. Divination, in my view, is not just about gaining insights about the future, but it's also trying to tap into that divine guidance from within. So next we have the letter E, and for E I have energy. So in my view, the purpose of witchcraft is to manipulate energy. And we are manipulating energy all day, every day through our physical actions. But with witchcraft, we're also trying to manipulate the energetic force around certain people, things, objects through our ritualized actions, whether that be through a type of ritual itself or through spell work. And there are a lot of beliefs around energy and how we can interact with it, potentially push things in a certain direction. And I'm not going to get into too much details on my philosophy around the components of energy as associated with witchcraft, but maybe I will talk about that more in the future. So next, with letter F, we have folklore. So folklore you can think of as a body of culture shared by a particular group of people. And this can include a variety of traditions common to that culture. This might include certain oral traditions such as tales and legends, also material cultures such as various types of crafts. So with witchcraft, a lot of it is based on a particular culture's folklore. For example, a lot of the spells you find in traditional witchcraft come from a particular time period, mainly the witch trials, and incorporating some of that folklore and tales from the witch trials and bringing it into spellwork and rituals that can be performed in modern day. So just like with letter B and books, understanding the folklore and learning about it by reading is a really great way to deepen your witchcraft practice. So next we have G, and for G I have Grimoire, which is a book of magic basically, or a book of spells. And some people might be familiar with the term Book of Shadows, which is a book you create that contains your own witchcraft practice, your own spells, rituals, herb correspondences, things like that. Grimoires is a term for traditional magic texts. You can technically call the book that you create a grimoire as well if you prefer, but there have been grimoires since basically the beginning of culture. So there are a wide variety of magical texts that you can research and learn from. But basically any text that has a lot of invocations or spells can be considered a grimoire. Hey guys, this is me from the future. I am editing this video right now and I just realized I forgot to film the letter H. So I'm gonna do that real quick. So for the letter H, I have chosen the word history because I personally am a huge history buff and I love to research the history of topics like witchcraft and paganism. Okay, now that I've done that, back to the video. So for letter I have initiation. And this is something that is going to be different for everyone. There are some people out there that are interested in some of the initiatic systems of witchcraft, particularly through Alexandrian or perhaps Gardnerian Wicca, that do involve intensive initiation ceremonies. And there are a lot of people that might just practice witchcraft by themselves and perform a type of self-initiation. And it has changed a lot over time, and there are a lot of different opinions about initiation. Some people out there believe that you need to be initiated by someone else into the craft, while others think, you know, you can do your own thing. And initiation in general is much bigger than just the topic of witchcraft. Initiations have been a big part of many pre-Christian societies and cultures, and they are a huge part that's kind of missing from our modern or contemporary life. It used to be that when people became an adult, they would go through a type of initiatory ceremony. So for example, in Native American cultures, in some of them, when a boy was ready to become a man, he would be sent out to the wilderness and communicate with whatever spirits were there in the wilderness, and he would come back as a man and kind of tell the tribal elders who he was. And no one could deny that, because at that point he had gone through that initiation process by himself and had a deeply meaningful experience. So part of me is very curious about the role that initiation has in our psyche, and what the lack of initiatory ceremonies we have in our contemporary lives, if that's doing something negative to our culture or not. So initiation, whether that's through just yourself doing it or through another member initiating you, I think can be a very powerful part of your practice. Next we have J. So for J, I have Carl Jung, Jung spelled J-U-N-G. And Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology. And he's best known for his theories on the collective unconscious, including the concept of archetypes. So a lot of the symbolism that you see in various witchcraft traditions, and especially within tarot and astrology, in part comes from these archetypes and from our own subconscious. So Carl Jung was a really influential figure that brought some of these ideas into the public discourse. So for the letter K, I have the Key of Solomon. So the Key of Solomon is a famous grimoire attributed to King Solomon, who was a king of Israel from around 970 BCE. And the actual Key of Solomon, the grimoire itself, though that probably dates back to around the 14th or the 15th century, and it's a really good example of Italian Renaissance magic. And I bring this up because a lot of later rituals and witchcraft, spell work, and ideas come in part or were inspired by the Key of Solomon. So you'll probably see it being referred to when you are going through your studies. And for our letter L, I have libation. So if you are familiar with the Wiccan tradition, you might find that after rituals or even some type of spell work, they mention it's a good idea to have what is called cakes and ale afterward. And that's just really a way to kind of ground yourself back in after exuding a lot of energy during your practice. It can also be kind of a celebratory aspect with certain rituals such as sabbats or esbats. So for me, with cakes and ale, this is a fun part of any ritual. I like to pour myself a glass of wine or in certain cases some nice whiskey, and I usually will scrounge around and see what I have for the cakes part. In many cases, I'll just cut up a couple slices of some bread that I might have made, or maybe I'll bring out a couple cookies. So it's just a kind of way to celebrate the ending of the ritual and to help ground yourself back into your body. For our letter M, we have the moon. And the moon to me really represents the sacred feminine, just as the sun can represent the sacred masculine in a symbolic way. And through my own spiritual practice, one of the things I've really appreciated is becoming more attuned to the lunar cycles. So being aware of the waxing and the waning of the moon. And for anyone that is more in the Wiccan tradition, they might be familiar with asbats, which are full moon celebrations. So there are certain celebrations or certain spell work rituals you can do that are based on the different cycles of the moon. The next letter we have is N, and that is for nature. A huge part of witchcraft to me is finding an aspect of the divine in our natural world. Of course, nature plays a huge part in the majority of spell work and rituals. A lot of our seasonal celebrations are based around that harvest cycle. Of course, we just mentioned the cycles of the moon as well, and a lot of spell work incorporates things like herbs and plants. So we are really trying to tap into that divine essence of nature throughout our practice. And that to me is something that makes witchcraft incredibly unique and for me very fulfilling as well. So for our letter O, we have OBE, or out of body experiences. And this is a topic that I talked about a bit in one of my recent podcast episodes. But out of body experiences can be a number of things. So they can be something like astral travel, where you are projecting your kind of etheric body out of yourself. And there have been a lot of interesting studies about astral travel. Even the CIA have done a lot of research into the potentials of astral travel. And from a witchcraft perspective, you also have things like hag riding, where your body kind of leaves itself, and you might have even heard of like the witch's Sabbath, right? So while you could be physically in bed, your etheric body could be out and celebrating, having a good time. So that is for our letter O. Hey guys, it's me from the future. So I realized I forgot a couple more letters when I was filming earlier, so this is what happens when I do not drink coffee in the morning. But anyway, so we are on to the letter P, and for the letter P I chose the word paganism. So I personally am a practicing pagan, and you don't need to be pagan in order to do witchcraft. Again, witchcraft is more of a practice. It's something you do as opposed to any religious or spiritual belief. However, I chose this for the letter P because there are a lot of pagans out there who do incorporate witchcraft into their wider spiritual practice. Okay, let's jump back in. For our letter Q, I have the 4 quarters. So the 4 quarters really represent the 4 elements. And in some ritual traditions, you call on the 4 quarters to enter into your sacred space. So you spend some time in the north, south, east, west, and you try and call in the energy of that quarter, the energy of that element into your sacred space for the purpose of that ritual. Next, we have R for ritual, and there are many different types of rituals out there. We have the SBATs that I mentioned before, and then we also have the Sabbats that some people might celebrate, and those are the 8 Wiccan holidays, and I've made many videos about the Sabbats in the past, so I will link those down below in case you'd like to check them out. And of course, there are just general rituals for a wide variety of purposes that you might be performing. So it's really up to you what rituals you will and will not celebrate. And you can, of course, make up your own. And I find that ritual is very important for our psyche, whether that be simple daily rituals that we do that are more mundane, like pouring a morning cup of coffee, or something more elaborate like some big ceremonial magical ritual for a particular holiday. So it's really up to you. The next letter we have is S, and I have Scrying for that. And that is really kind of looking into a crystal ball or a black mirror to help see some visions or to divine the future in a particular way. Then we have T, which is of course my favorite, tarot, because I am a full-time tarot reader. And just like with Scrying, tarot can help assist with divination and determining some guidance for the future, but it can also be used as a introspective tool to kind of just check in and see how you are doing with your wider goals in life. Then we are moving on to U, and the letters are starting to get a bit more tricky. So with U, I picked universal consciousness. This is also occasionally called panpsychism, and it's the belief that there is a level of consciousness in everything. So of course we as humans are conscious, but with universal consciousness, even a table, for example, might have a little bit of consciousness in there, or a plant might have a little bit more, an animal, and then a human. So it's kind of the idea that we are all interconnected through the concept of consciousness, or that consciousness might be a bit more developed and advanced than science currently gives it credit for. So whether you believe in universal consciousness or not, that's fine. It is a theory that I personally am looking more into, and it could explain in part why a lot of things like spells work in the first place. To me, it would make more sense if universal consciousness does have a ring of truth to it. Okay guys, so for the letter V, I chose the word visualization. So visualization is an important skill to develop as it will increase the effectiveness of any witchcraft that you might be attempting to do. With visualization, you are focusing on your goal within your mind and you are trying to direct the energy or direct that intention outward. So visualization is a really important skill to develop, and there are many different ways you can develop that. Of course, meditation is one of the best ways you can help improve your own visualization technique. Okay, let's jump back in for the last time. So then for our letter W, I have Wicca. And Wicca is a branch of paganism. So Wicca is not the same thing as paganism, but some pagans are Wiccans. And then with witchcraft, some Wiccans practice witchcraft, some pagans practice witchcraft, but to practice witchcraft, that doesn't mean you are Wiccan or pagan. In my view, witchcraft is an act. It's something that you do or perform. So it doesn't necessarily need to have a wider religious or spiritual component to it. However, a lot of people that do follow certain religious or spiritual traditions incorporate witchcraft as part of that tradition. So it is a bit complicated, and I do go into all of that, the differences between paganism, witchcraft, and Wicca in a previous video, so I will link that as well if you would like some more info on that. But I did pick Wicca because that is how I was introduced to witchcraft back when I was a teenager. So I do have a lot to thank for Wicca, though nowadays I am moving slightly away from Wicca and more towards traditional witchcraft as well as pagan reconstructionism. So next we have X. And X, I am going to cheat because I couldn't think of anything that starts with a letter X for witchcraft. What I picked was 10, as in the Roman numeral 10, which is an X. So I chose that for the Wheel of Fortune, card 10 or X in the tarot. So the Wheel of Fortune is one of my favorite cards in tarot because it is so cryptic and includes a lot of fascinating symbolism. So I thought it'd be a fun card to kind of cheat my way into picking something for the letter X. And we are almost to the end here for why I chose Yule. So Yule is a pagan holiday that occurs on the winter solstice, and I've done a video in the past all about Yule and the various traditions and associations connected with this particular Sabbath, and it is one of the 8 Wiccan Sabbaths, though a lot of pagan cultures did have some type of celebration around the time of the winter solstice. So while it's not directly connected to witchcraft in particular, the winter solstice is a great time to incorporate certain witchcraft traditions. And we are on to our last letter, letter Z, and for Z I have the Zodiac. So astrology is something that I am in the process of learning a lot more about. And I started my podcast actually at the last winter solstice, and for the podcast I am the tarot reader and my co-host is the astrologer. So the Zodiac is something we talk about a fair bit in my podcast, and I will link my podcast down below too if you'd like to check it out. It is a weekly show, and we begin it with a tarot forecast and an astrology forecast for the upcoming week ahead, and then we dive into interviews or topics associated with witchcraft, with paganism, with the occult, paranormal, all of those fun ideas. So definitely check that out if you are a fan of podcasts. And I hope you really liked this video. It was fun to make. Again, this is just meant to be a fun little video. It's not meant to be super serious or anything, but I saw some other people doing it and thought I would put my own spin on it. And I would love to hear in the comments down below what you would choose for certain letters. Would you pick some of the same terms I did, or would you pick entirely different terms? I'd love to hear. And if you like to make your own response video where you do your own version of the A to Z of witchcraft, let me know. I would love to check that out. So thanks again for watching, and if you do like this video, do please consider taking a moment to like and subscribe so I can keep on creating weekly videos for you guys. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye.